Hey folks, Rob here bringing another unbagging. We have Mannerheim Cross this time. Again, another purchase I made at CASLO XXIX this past Victoria Day weekend here in Canada. Battleschool from Chris Story's store was there at CASLO. I bought one of many things from him. And we have Mannerheim Cross from Bounding Fire Productions. A nice little thick module. Again, rather pricey, but we got lots of goodness. Looking at 5 boards, numerous play aids according to the back, including several articles and different things. We have counters, and it's going to be, as it says, action-packed, including several scenarios and things. This is about the Finnish and covers all 3 of the wars that they fought throughout World War II. And let's break it open and see what's inside. Right, so first up we have the cover magazine, if you want to call it that. This is going to have all of our designer notes for the different kinds of counters we're going to be looking at. They go into quite a bit of detail into each. Looks like we're going to be having several different plane counters. Yeah, aircraft of all different sorts. I'm going to go on a limb and say there's probably too many to represent for what we need. Are they all the same? Yeah, the counters are all the same, but we get some history behind the actual fighters themselves, represented by the same counters. So, although there might be different depiction of colors. Oh yeah, there's slight variations to it. So, yeah, there's slight variations to the color schemes and the different information you're going to see on the counter. I don't know if that's going to be worth the hassle because of the I wouldn't say scarcity of aircraft, but yeah, I don't know. It seems a bit much to have this many different aircraft for that. But again, if you like aircraft in your battles, by all means, use it. I don't know how much play that's going to get. Here we go, the Finnish front. We're going to be talking about different Finnish capabilities. They're going to be going into a lot of information. That is quite a bunch of condensed capabilities that the Finnish have. We talk about light woods. Now, I've seen the DRM modifier on the bog chart for light woods, but I've never found a description of light woods anywhere in the rulebook. Maybe I'm wrong, but if one of you guys could point it out in the ASL rulebook, I'd really love to hear where it is. But this actually uses light woods, which you're going to kind of see. Now, in Counterproof Piper, and because of that in the core rules, I do bring out pine woods, which are kind of like light woods, I think, because they're not as dense as normal woods are. There's a little bit more space between the trunks, for example. They're quite easy to walk through. That might be what they're referencing, but they don't explicitly say that. So having information on light woods, I guess, is quite good. We're using prepared fire zones, which is something that came out in Hakapale, which I guess this could be looked at as an expansion of Hakapale. So now we're going to be talking about the actual module itself, Mannerheim Cross. We got these huge pillbox counter sheets, by the way. This is the kind of thing we're looking at. That's quite intense. Looks like we're getting new pillbox counters, 3 plus 6 8 as well, 2 6 8s. Fortified pillboxes. Large, heavily reinforced bunkers. It's kind of funny when you think about fortified pillbox. It's almost like an oxymoron, but a lot of information on how to use these new pillboxes. Several pages on how to use them. Wow. Looks like they had a complex of several of these pillboxes that were mutually supported. so you can cover all your arcs, which makes sense because, of course, the biggest weakness with a pillbox is once you get behind it, it's useless. And therefore, having these kinds of orientations where you're covering all of your arcs, it's much easier to defend against attackers that are coming up behind you. That is a lot of information on pillboxes. A whole chart on determining critical hits versus pillboxes and how that functions. Anti-tank boulders. That's a new counter. Yeah, okay, that's the thing. So you're getting different kinds of obstacles now that you can put in. A trail break through an anti-tank boulder. Interesting. Interesting. Anti-tank boulders, eh? That is a lengthy series of pages on boulders and pillboxes. And then we get into finish units. So we're going to be looking at, looks to be, yeah, so we have assault engineers. Every nationality appears to have their own version of assault engineers. And rather than use the standard ones that came out in MMP, they're coming up with their own variant of slightly lesser quality. Like A38s have their 548 variants, their 468 variants. Americans have their own, not 747s, but something lesser, etc. Russians have 558s now. Russian Marines 558s. Okay. And then we get into winter weather. I'm assuming they expand on the snow rules. And then here we have some historical notes on the actual during the war itself. So always interesting to read this actual what happened during the time. Good sources, so that's good to see as well. I do like the historical research that goes into the ASL. I think that's one of the things that draws me to the game is when they do some good history researching and you see this kind of stuff back here on the actual, what it was like at the time using a whole bunch of sources rather than just sole sourcing one thing and quoting it. You're actually drawing from several, basically doing some good research. Molotov cocktails on the battlefield, how they're used. And then the usual advertising. So this is a summation of what you're going to find in the Mannerheim Cross bundle. You have 44 scenarios, which is a lot. You're going to have about 900 counters over probably 2 sheets, I imagine. You're going to have 5 map boards, including some geomorphics, half-wide boards, and the double-wides. Play aids, you have articles, which are all in here, rule pages, some Chapter H notes, and comprehensive Finnish aircraft, and several new Russian aircraft as well. All right, so let's see what else I got. Alrighty, so we already talked about these pillbox aids. So from here, we can cover the different orientations that they have for the different pillboxes. So once more, these are covering all your covered arcs depending on the orientation that you're using. And these would all sit in one hex, so you could have whatever hex you are with your 3 different pillboxes covering your covered arcs. Very, very deadly to approach. Not sure how you would approach that. We'll have to figure that out into play, I guess. Here we go with a nice little divider chart. Good to see they're sticking with the super small printing. That's going to be hard to read. Winter weather effects on terrain. and infantry, and vehicles, hindrances. Summation of all the rules that were just in that magazine we show, or booklet. Movement tables, prepared fire zones. On the back side, we have anti-tank boulders, some more movement factor tables, a whole information on the fortified pillbox. All right, so let's look at some counters here. I'm not sure what's with the red ones. Is that supposed to represent Berserk? Use a Berserk counter rather than 6-2-10. Yeah, so these are Berserk counters. 7-4-10. A 7-4-10 counter. Obviously, those are going to be some finished Berserk units. You can see the for the nice red artwork. Your typical system counters, looking just enough to be different from the main ones. And nothing, well, you see the motion fail counters. Again, you get your corner rounders on those, you're going to lose some material, but it's only a little bit of the red, not really going to be a loss. No bulging in the backside, so looks to be a good quality counter sheet. Here we have finished counters with a whack load of different airplanes. We got some Russian tanks, and I'm not sure what this one is. Looks like some old OT-36. Well, that is some funky looking World War I tank. By the way, as a complete tangent, when I was at CASLO, something I noticed that several of the counters that I was using from other people were still not clipped, and they were quite old. So apparently, there's this trend, if you want to call it that, to not clip counters, which I don't understand. Corner nubs on counters are yeah, that's a thing. I'm not sure why. It looks much cleaner when you clean them off, whether you're X-Acto knife, nail clipper, or you get the $100 corner rounder. Doesn't really matter. Just cleaning them up makes them look that much sharper. But I don't think that's an elitist comment. I just think it looks nicer to see your counters looking nicely clipped. And again, you can see the back, how there's no warping from the individual counters from the die cutting. So it's a nice, thick, good quality. The counters are really firmly bedded in. More Russian hardware. We also have a variety of Russian planes. Almost 3 full blocks of Russian planes. A lot of flamethrower tanks. So it looks to be a little bit of flamethrower action going on here. Nice colorful artwork in some cases. It's one thing I'm liking is, well, to some degree, sometimes it goes a little overboard, is colored counters. Um, Sometimes the black and white color work on the colored counter is sufficient. Other times it's okay, guys. This is 2025. Let's modernize a little bit and get into the good, high quality printing because the technology's come a long way, and we can get this kind of fine detail in our printing products. So why not take advantage of it? And we can get more clarity on our font sizes. Like I know I'm holding this up to a high def camera, but you can actually make out the lettering in the vehicles. Yeah, some of the planes might be a bit close for the cutting. I really am going to have to buy a fourth Rayco container to hold all the third-party counters that I'm starting to pick up now. And then we have masses of Russian infantry. We have our naval infantry here. Looks to be blue and white as they wore. Complete order of battle for them. We have some more Finns, including the Finnish engineers at 648s. That is a funky looking heavy machine gun. Looks like a little round pill with looks like a frying pan actually. Yeah, you have the two-tone naval infantry Russian. Some of the E's on the Russian naval infantry are going to be quite close to your clipping. I'd probably recommend the 2 millimeter. You don't want to go too much material if you want to keep the E recognizable. These are half-inch counters anyways, so normally you don't want to go the 2.5 because it just takes away too much. And same with the green troops here. Russian green naval infantry. So they're not conscripts. They actually have green infantry for the unless that G is representing something else. 227G. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, 427Gs. Yeah, so instead of having conscripts, they're having green troops. All right, let's look at some vehicle and aircraft notes. You could call these Chapter H, but we won't. Information on all the different aircraft. Not sure where we're going to put these. I'm not using a 3-ring binder anymore, so I guess they're going to go in one of my boxes somewhere. All laid out the same way, quite familiar. Looks to be carrying on from the previous Bounding Fire numbering, so I don't have any other bound. This is my only Bounding Fire product that I have, so I don't have any of the previous ones, which means that the lettering is going to be, or the numbering is going to be off from the previous products. I assume that's Onslaught to Orsha or something like that. Nice large text, so it's readable. You know, I don't even need my glasses for this, which is always cool. Then we get into the finish. Not too much to read here. And then we get into some historical notes. So these accompany the pamphlet that we went through earlier. These are the actual rules themselves on actually how to apply them. That is a lot of information, a page and a half on just how to use the fortified pillbox. We have the cupolas. Oh, I see. So that's what that is. The frying pan is basically like a small little armored machine gun position. Our anti-tank boulders for a bunch of rocks piled up to block access. How to use Russian Marines. And let's read up on Russian. They don't have any information on the green. Yeah, they just have green MMC. So green and conscript are relatively the same. I forget the exact difference, but generally speaking, they're treated the same way. They're both inexperienced troops. There is a minor difference. I'm just not aware of it right now at this time. I'm just not sure what differentiates the two. And we have a Finnish anti-tank hero. Hmm. And then we have more ordnance notes. This probably should have been at the beginning of the chapter. All right, so as I normally do, I'm going to mask off the OBs. 40 scenarios, I'm just going to zip through this quickly. Grenade knives and fists. I do like the actual colorized boards. We're using 4 double wides, and to be 2 normal boards, half of that. Double wide boards. Is that what they're calling normal boards? This is the one that Robin Reeve is playing right now on YouTube. It's only 6 turns, not too bad. Small unit actions dealing around a small little village. This is one that was designed by Chas Smith. Another small little one, 7 turns. Takes place around that hill. It's kind of like a, well, yeah. Not even gonna try and pronounce that name. 3 boards, 8 turns. Looks to be a little bit bigger. We're going to have 32 squads versus 31 Finnish squads. Finns are on the attack. And it looks to be winter camouflage for the Finns. Ground snow's in effect. And we can use hand-to-hand. This one's got a lot of armor on it. We have AT guns. Russians have, what, 5 tanks? And we're using most of 2 boards. 6 turns. One, the Fortenberry boards. Half a dozen or so, well, almost 20 troops versus almost 20. attacking the giant. This is an interesting orientation. You have one of the Fortenberry boards with 2 half boards and a lot of troops. We're looking at 20 Russians with over 10 tanks. Well, 10 tanks actually on the nose. And then Finns are heavily fortified with about 15 or so squad equivalents. Looks to be a 2-parter. We have the Finns on the left, Russians on the right. Board layout is much like the other ones. We're using 2 of the Fortenberries and 2 of the double wides, I guess. And 1 of the normal geo boards. 9 turns. We have 11 SSRs. That is crazy. Look at all the Russian. This is all Russian armor. You can't see it because it's masked off, but we're looking at, what, 20 tanks? With 30 squads for the Russians. Again, we're looking at a lot of defensive fortifications and guns for the Finns, and they have 23 squad or so equivalents. They got 9 crews to man their guns, so it tells you something. I tell you, Chas Smith has been a busy little beaver working on this. I wonder how long it took him to get Mannerheim Cross out the door. Probably a couple of years. A lot of work went into this product, and it shows. This one's fairly small. It's only about a dozen squads on each side. Well, maybe 10. A couple of tanks. Nothing too big. 7 turns. Quite doable. 4 small SSRs. Compare that to this one over here. Fairly large. Once more, we jump into 20 plus squads for the Russians and a whack load of different tank types against fortified Finns with 10 SSRs, including early war doctrine for the Russians. Hand-delivered sausage. Interesting title. $1 Million Bash. We're going to have a 2-parter here. Yeah, so we have Finns left on the top right. We have the Russians. Look at this. This is about 14 different Russian tanks and 25 squad equivalents-ish versus, once more, defending fortified Finns who only have, what, a dozen squads with a lot of guns and pillboxes. And they got 28 boulders that they can place around, so. Fire and Brimstone is another 2-parter, probably on the back of this one here. Yeah. Russian OB on the right, Finns are on the left. Huge variety of forces, 7.5 turns, very odd board configuration. Should be interesting to sort that out in Vassal. Fire and Brimstone. Again, using just about every tank in the Russian OB, 1 of each, or 2 of each in some cases. And we have 3 different types of aircraft for the Russians. Back to normal, we have 1 double wide. And we have 6.5 turns. Variety of Russian tanks. You're going to get the theme here. Haunted Zoo. Not very large infantry complements despite the huge layout. We have a variety of Russian as always. And you're only looking at 15 squads. And for the Russians, and Finns 10. Finns are on the defensive. They set up second though, so Russians set up first, and they move first. Really like you to dig out the counters again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different Russian tanks. 6 Russian tanks, including a monster with the 152. And we have Finnish aircraft. We have a 25 double long. Should be interesting. Well, the tank armor is relatively weak, so we should be okay with the 25 double long. Most of them have 1 armor. There's a couple of beasts out there, but should be okay. And we're using up the anti-tank boulders as well. This one here, we have 2 10-2, a 10-2, and a 10-1 armor leader for the Russians with their 5 tanks. 6.5 turns. Very small infantry complement for the Finns with their fortification, as well as the 2 guns, a 37 long and a 25 double long. Now that might be a little bit more challenging to take out the armor, although the armor tends to be relatively weak. I think we're looking at a 4 hull is the toughest armor that you're going to be facing. That's a 1940. The Tyrants block 9.5 turns. We're getting a little bit bigger here. Here we have Finnish OBA with defensive fortification, and Russians moving first. The Russians or Finns were getting the counterattacks in, but by and large looks to be a lot of Russian attacks onto the Finns. And then we have 171 teaching Superman. We have the SS regiment, and they're using the black counters to represent that. And we have Finns and SS versus Russians. We have 14 Russian squads with a couple of armor coming on turn 3, facing off against 24 Finns and Germans with a couple or 4 German tanks attacking. This is 41. And we have one of the huge boards with it looks to be, is that an overlay? Yeah, it's a railway overlay, which cuts through the northwest corner of the large board. 2 boards, board N and board U. Six and a half turns, beauty ruined. Finns are here on the move. This is 41. Relatively small OBs on both sides. Very doable. We do have 2 flamethrower tanks for the Finns, so that's worrisome for the Russians. Russians have booby trap level C. They can set up 2 squads hip. And the Finns AFVs enter with half their MPs already expended. So, and crews cannot voluntarily abandon an AFV. So probably going to have something in the way of building control. Yeah, so there's building control. This is a common SSR. Whenever there's building control involved in the victory conditions, crews cannot abandon their AFV just to avoid that, because it's a way to game the system, knowing that you can abandon your vehicle and claim a building. So they write in an SSR because smart players will do that kind of thing. Even though historically it's not possible, at the end of the day it is a game with the intent to win, and therefore people are going to do that kind of thing. 8.5 turns. This one might be a bit longer to play. We have 26 Russian squads with 4 tanks versus 20 Finns and 4 tanks. Again, crews may not abandon their vehicle. Hostage of Fortune, we have 10 turns. A lot of troops, you're looking at 25 or so for the Russians, and the Finns have 20 squads on the nose and 6 tanks. With a chance for mechanical reliability for the T-26 tanks. These two here, I think. '41, we're still in the early war. Relatively. I guess this would be the continuation war, the one in the middle. 8 turns, looking at 2 boards, and we have guns, vehicles, as well as 16 troops for the Russians versus 15 Finns and half a dozen or so vehicles. 11th man, once more, we have the Germans pairing up with the Finns on the defense against the Russians in 1942. '44, we're starting to get into the late war, and we're back to the wide variety of forces. 7 different Russian tanks, and we actually have an 8th one coming in as a reinforcement. Finns are in defense once more. They pillboxes, guns, fortifications, mines, AT mines, and they got boulders. And 11 squads with at least 5 guns slash heavies. Oh, and the Russians get air support too. The Finnish 76 infantry gun has unlimited heat ammo. That's an interesting SSR. Unlimited heat ammo. I wonder how that came up in the play testing. Call them bazookas. Finns have PF Panzerschreck capability as if it was 744, even though it's June 44. What are we looking at here? 12, 20 Finnish squads with fortifications and defense against, we're looking at 22 Russians with another 8 coming on reinforcements, so we're looking at 30 Russian squads and a dozen or so tanks with guns coming up against the prepared Finns over 3 boards, 8 turns. Finns also have air support. Stigs, Stugs. Little tongue twister action there. 8 turns, late war, 1944. Once more, we have cannot abandon their AFV, so we have building control as one of the VC. 181 under the bloody birches. Very small, 6.5 turns. A dozen Russians, including naval infantry. Well, they're all naval infantry. Versus 8 Finnish squads, some of which enter in as reinforcements. The Anzio of East Karelia. 7 turns. 20 Finnish squads, air support, fortifications, and guns. And then we have about 20 Russian naval infantry with air support attacking into that. Finnish set up second and move second. Russians set up first and move first. That's happened twice now in this scenario pack. Interesting. Normally you set up first and move last, but not here. I wonder if they're going to have any Finnish versus German action in the late war. Tally Whacker. Interesting. Here we go again. 76 infantry gun has unlimited heat, and crews may not abandon vehicles. 15 Finnish squads are defending against 15 Russian squads, supported by 6 tanks, and they're the monsters. The Joseph Stalin 2, and I can't make out what the other one is. I think it's the ISU 122. And then we have the nice little big one here. Variety of troops. We have 8 turns. Mixture of guns, aircraft, infantry versus, wow, that is a lot. 16 Russian tanks, 2 types of aircraft, and 25 Russian squads. And we have 2 flamethrower tanks as part of the Russian OB. Oh, we're using an LFT board in Blood on the Shores. Very cool. Uh, 18 concealment counters in Inferno at Ihantala. Um, that's a lot of dummy stacks. We have 10 squads for the Finns, and we have 15 for the Russians, with 8 tanks coming on board. Now, this is not something that I can play solo, because obviously we're going to have 18 dummy stacks going around. A lot of concealment terrain. You can see all the grain. And we're not sure how to set that up yet with solo play. Very difficult to do that when you're doing it by yourself. So this is not one that I can do easily. Blood on the Shores, number 189. Here we go. LFT board along with 2 other ones. And there is a whack load going on here. So we have 16 Finnish squads with a lot of crews for all the guns that they possess, versus some naval infantry and ground infantry units, for a total of what, 25 infantry. We have boats, amphibious vehicles, and tanks. So this is a Russian beach landing. Interesting. So these 2 groups of units here, the bottom group is going to be entering via boats, landing on the beaches. Russian and naval invasion. Very cool. Very nice. All right, so then we have BFP 190. 7 turns long. We're looking at 16 Finnish units. We have 16 concealment counters again, which are going to act as dummies, which can set up with any one of the 2 groups. We have 3 Finnish tanks that are coming on as reinforcements on turn 1. And facing off that, we have Russians setting up second and the Finns moving first. Russians have on their side 16 squads, a lot of guns, and tanks, some of which come on as no reinforcements. We have 2 groups, which you can pick. You can either pick a gun or you can pick a heavy and a tank. One of those two can augment your OB. And so you could either have 5 tanks or you could have 4 guns, your choice. 191, 6.5 turns. Fairly small units. We only have 15 Russians and 8 squad equivalents of Finns with 3 tanks. .192, the last Mahdi, and 10 Finnish squads, 7.5 turns, facing off against 16 naval infantry again. Three small SSRs, which is really nice. And then lastly, we have Lapland armor. We have Finns versus Germans, just like we said. What do we have? 15 Finnish squads with a couple of guns and 4 armor against 16 Wehrmacht and 8 tanks. All right, so this is the board that I was talking about. Robin Reeve was playing, colored a ground snow. We do have the church in here, so this should have a level 2 steeple occupied by a half squad or less, a level 1, and the ground level, I think. Or it might just have a level 1 steeple, but that would probably depend on SSR. So nice colorful artwork on the trees, small little village in the center of a little woods. Very nice board. Adds a little bit of variety to the standard board layout. Very cool. BFP Tango, interesting. A lot of crag. This is a weird color for the hills, not what I'm used to, but it'll work. Yeah, not much to say about this one. This is really odd. Interesting color for the building. Just some lone building just sitting out there all by its lonesome, surrounded by, I'm not sure what these are. I think they're supposed to be orchards. But, yeah, the coloring is a bit off. Not what I'm used to. Roads that go nowhere. Yeah, I'm not sure they could have done something with this besides just little segments. I realize they need to tie into the other boards, but do something. I'm not a fan of this board. Nice building, but I'm not a fan of this board. Yep, that's woods. You do this up at that other main wood board, and you're looking at a lot of dense forest fighting through that. It'd take you forever to navigate through that. You'd have to stay to the open areas. All right, so then we have the double wides. So we have 10 alpha up here, and then we have 10 bravo down here. Now, you could use them separately, but if you look at the roads, obviously they're intended to work together because the road sections are not your typical ones. Rather than sell them together, and therefore you need this huge ass box, it's a double wide board, and they can sell them separately, or I should say, ship them separately, and then you just marry them up together like this. So you get a nice large chunk of real estate. The numbering is continuous, and you just use them like that. So it's a nice little touch. Not too bad. Kind of like that. And then lastly, we have the what they call a Fortenberry board. I can't remember what the name of these was actually called, but there is a name for it. They're calling it HW. I don't know what that stands for right now off the top of my head. You guys can point it out in the comments down below. Again, just a sparse hill, a lot of brush, orchards everywhere. I don't know, something about this board just doesn't grab me. Now this is the intent of this board is to lie with, if you wanted to, you could take one of the regular boards and just set it up like at like this or like this and put another one on this side here. So that's the intent why it's like this. Or you can grab another double wide and just put it like this. But in any case, I'm just not a fan of this layout. I'm not sure what this is supposed to represent. And if you flip it over, the only difference is the lettering. So here we have A to Q, and then we have Q to GG. The only difference on the sides. All right, so there we have Mannerheim Cross, another addition to my third-party supply, which I'm going to have to find somehow, throw it into one of those boxes back there of my MMP storage. Didn't come in a box, came in a bag. You can see that it's all loose here, and I'm going to have to come up with a way to store it. Right now, I got a bunch of plano containers. I used to have my squad leader stuff in. I'm going to have to probably use that when I get around to clipping it, which I'm way behind on my clipping. Luckily, Dave's quite eager to clip. Thank you, Dave. And maybe he'll want to clip these. I don't know. I do have to clip the LFT stuff, this stuff, and of course, there's still a couple of modules that we have to clip, like St. Marie. I haven't even touched that yet. So I just finished Twilight of the Reich, the Volks Grenadier, a couple weeks ago. So yeah, Mannerheim Cross. I think it's a worthwhile bundle. Really like the artwork. I like the readability of the text. The counters seem to be high quality. Neil at ASL Academy did a good review of the counters. I recommend this video for that if you want a good counter quality video. That's the one to see. He does a complete comparison of all the different third-party and MMP counters. And BFP, I believe, is highly rated amongst that. So definitely showed in the quality of work. Chaz Smith did an excellent job of his research in producing this kind of stuff. You might get into the weeds a bit too much. I don't know if we need, a dozen plane counters. Not that there's that many, but for what they represent. But this is a game about crunch, right? ASL goes into the weeds. And if you want realism, then you're going to need planes with rockets and bombs and what have you. Different kinds of planes, different kinds of armor on planes to represent the plethora of shit that was there in the war. And that's really what it is, and including things like fortified pillboxes, which is, like I said, sounds like an oxymoron, but when you have those fortified zones where you have mutually supporting pillboxes, you need to have something that represents that. And that's what those rules are. They represent those interlocking pillboxes, which are fortified and therefore that much harder to conquer. So enough of that. I think this video's gone on a bit too long, but 40 scenarios is a lot to cover. And of course, there's the other stuff as well. Quite worthwhile. I think it's a worthy purchase. As I said, Canada, it's always going to be more expensive. Anything that's not the U.S. is going to be very expensive, because most of this stuff is produced there and it has to go out through the borders. You add in customs and all the rest of it. We're looking north of 200 Canadian for this little package. And I like the boards. I like the counters. I like the rules. How much of this is going to see play, I have no idea. I want to get into the scenarios. I'm motivated by Robin Reeves' playthrough that he started yesterday or the day before. I think he started it 2 days ago, and he's on his second turn, I think. I got to catch up on those videos as well. Robin Reeves' channel, go check it out on YouTube. He's on Game Squad forum as well, and just follow along. And he's going through, I think his intent is to tackle, well, I don't know how many, but he's going to be going through several of these Mannerheim Cross scenarios, and I intend to as well at some point. I'm still struggling to fit time in to do Twilight of the Reich. It's got this hassle-sassle bug that I have to get through. I'm not sure how much of this is going to work its way into that. I probably want to do some, I've always wanted to do a Finnish solitaire company. I don't know if I can do it with the material in this or not, but I'd like to give it a try. I do have a book on the Finnish War, and if you can see it there on the second column in underneath the Syria book there. You can just see it on the Finland at War. I was thinking of doing a company historical module, but I got so many things on the go. Who knows if that's going to see the light of day. But I don't know if this will help with that kind of research because it's covering all 3 different wars the Finns fought. The information's kind of spread out. It may not be specific enough. Mannerheim Cross. Let me know what you think. If you like it. If you don't like it, what you don't like about it, let me know. I think it's a good thing. And now I have 3 third-party products. I've got Opmacure from Heat of Battle, Mannerheim Cross, and of course LFT's Green Halavinor. Well, I'm sure it won't be the last third-party products that I start picking up as I slowly fill out my shelf back there. I gotta find a place to put this, and it's probably gonna go inside. Well, it's not gonna go in Hakapale because that's still full. One of the other boxes. All right, you guys have a great day. See you next video. Bye bye.